Okay.
Okay, so good afternoon to you all, my panel and everyone viewing now. I know that this afternoon's program is going to be a great discussion because there are so many persons who are eager to hear what we have to say for my lovely panel, my well-informed panel that I usually have every week to give their insight on our topic. And there are persons messaging us asking for the Zoom link or the opportunity to join us live. So my advice to you would be to share this live so that we can get to, we can get a wider view and more persons are informed. So thank you for joining us. I must apologize for the late start to our viewers. It's due to some technical difficulties. Okay, so you are now live with ChildLinK, and today we will be discussing the impact of separation. So I have my lovely panel with me, Mr. Carwin Holland, who is no stranger to this program. He was here only last week, sharing sharing some information, and his understanding and his parental views. And we have our lovely family counselor, Miss Yolette Hines. She was on the program, I think, twice before. So she's back with us today. And today we also have a new face to the program, Miss Ward. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hello.
Could you kindly introduce yourself? I'm not seeing you. Is it just me?
Hi.
Okay, yes.
Can you see me now?
Yes, I'm seeing you.
Hi, my name is Tanzo Ward. I have a BSc in social work, and I've been doing a realm of work within the area. I'm also a volunteer within the GLOW program, which deals with children, and I am the co-host of the International Chill and Chat Show.
Yes. So thank you all for joining me today. I am so eager to get started with this discussion. So like I mentioned earlier today, we are discussing the impact of separation. Remember that this program is brought to you under our Recovery, Safeguarding, Reintegration Initiative, which is funded by the delegation of the European Union to Guyana. So we're going to get right ahead, and I'm going to jump right into my first question. So I want our viewers to understand. And I'm going to start with you, Miss Ward. So, Mr. Holland or Yolette, don't feel no way. It's just, new face to the program. So we're going to give her the first go. So, Miss Ward, can you please tell me, what is parental care and give some reasons why it is important for a child's development?
In my opinion, I do believe that parental care is a behavioral or an evolutionary strategy involving parenting using investment of their energy and time towards the child's well-being so that the child can have a thorough physical development, social development, throughout all the stages that they're expected to go through within their lifetime. Why is it important? For many reasons. Children goes through 5 main stages of development, um, amongst many others. And parental care is important for these children so they can successfully transition into different stages and not become fixated, and or where they can have the support that will allow them to develop into the best persons they can be. And to some extent, children are somewhat born on a blank slate and most time dependent on others because they cannot care solely for themselves for most of their formative years. So parental care acts as the guide or the vehicle that takes them to a place until they can better do it for themselves. Yeah, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah. Mr. Allen, would you like to add to that?
All right. Yes. Good afternoon, everyone, to the esteemed panel. I hope you can hear me clearly, and
Yes.
also expect some talking because I'm around other persons. All right.
Yeah.
Good. So quickly, I just want to say that parental care, in my view, and it's noted that it refers to any behavior on the part of either or both parents, father or mother, that help to their children survive. And when we speak of survival, we're speaking of providing security, we're speaking of providing stability, you're speaking of providing emotional support, you're speaking of providing consistency, um, education, love, positive, being a positive role model, someone that they can look up to, and structure and discipline. And when you talk of structure and discipline, these are provisions that parents must make, all right? Provide a structure for their upbringing and a discipline for them to, or guidelines for them to follow, all right? So that they can understand the path they should take in life. And when we talk of structures and disciplines, let's say for fathers, they would ensure security and the mother will provide the comfort to the main care that a father could do and a mother. Father in particular, they can, my understanding is that they can provide, they need to provide. I think it was Pastor John Smith on preaching one day. He spoke of fathers being providers, protectors, and being the prophetic voice to speak positively into their children, into their child's life. Right? Also preserves the family and provides the vision for the family. Also provides motivation and provides direction. Fathers, like mothers, they're both pillars of development. And in when you're talking about a child's emotional development and their well-being, so they also look to their fathers to provide a feeling of security, both physical and emotional. All right. You see, most children, especially girls, they want to make their father proud. And, and this brings on a greater sense of comfort and development. Mothers, likewise, they nurture, they comfort, and they also give the support. But the changing the complexities of family these days, you see mothers taking on all the dual roles in families.
Yes. Thank you for that, Mr. Allen. Yolanda, is there anything you'd like to add to what our panelists would have said?
In addition to what the panel is saying, you hear me clear, Shikmita?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Okay, perfect. So I actually, when researching the actual question, I took the definition from Bernard 2011, and they would have said that parental care can be defined as any non-genetic contribution by a parent that increases the fitness of offspring and can occur before or after leave or birth. But what stood out for me in this actual definition is the fact that they said non-generic, and that would speak to not biological parents alone, but parents or a household that offers care to a child. It might actually be from a foster care home. They
Mhm.
might provide parental care. It might be from a true adoption. They can provide parental care. So that part of the definition didn't only speak to me to the biological side, but it spoke to the non-biological side or connections that children might have with parents and or relatives.
Mhm.
Also, what I would like to add in terms of some of the reasons why, parental care is important, I would say it promotes good mental health for children. And I know we know a lot of times people don't really focus on mental health for children, but we know through nurturing and care, good mental health can actually develop within a child from a young age.
Mhm.
And it also helps the child to stay positive or have a optimistic outlook at life and the challenges that they might face in life. And it helps also to develop the emotional being of that child. So we really want to think when we think about parental care, we think about the reasons for parental care, we have to look at it on a holistic view that every aspect of that being, that young person, as we say, is catered for the emotional, the psychological, and the physical aspect of the individual.
Yes, so thank you so much for that. And I know we're talking about the impact of separation, but one of the reasons we decided to ask about the importance of parental care is because children are separated. There are different factors that cause that, that lead to that. And we know that to separate something is to move it apart. Okay, so the father is removed from the home, the mother is removed from the home, and the child is there, or the child is in the care of someone who is not a parent per se. There might be a caregiver, a relative or so, but it's not mommy and daddy. So, what we really want persons to understand is that mommy and daddy plays a very important role in your life. Okay, so we spoke about parental care, and I just define separation as something being moved apart. So I'll start with you now, Yolette. How are children, affected when they're separated from their parents? I know you work with families as a family counselor. So I would like for you to tell us, our viewers, a bit about how are children affected when they're separated from their parents.
So children are affected different ways when separation kicks in or happens in a family or outside of the family. What happens is that a child can be affected emotionally, children can be affected psychologically, children can be affected. So what are these areas? So the emotional aspect, we find that some children have no sense of belonging, feel themselves but have no belonging, because the
Excuse
mom is
me.
separated from their
Sorry for cutting you, but your audio is a bit, I don't know. Are you using a fan or so?
dad.
I'm getting some static.
I'm using your sure. How is it going?
Oh,
Is this better?
no, it's not clear. I'm not hearing you at all. No, I lost you completely.
Are you hearing me now, Shakita?
Yes, yes,
Okay,
pretty clear,
great.
yes. Mhm.
All right. Sorry about that. So, in looking at the emotional side of it, we have some of our children saying that they don't feel that they belong anywhere. Some children become lost emotionally. Children feel from time to time, because of the separation, I have no place in the world
Mhm.
outside of because the home and the family setting provides such security and such a sense of love for children. When that separation happens, it affects them a lot of times first emotionally, and from that emotional effect it comes down like a really trickling effect. You have physically, some children decide they don't want to eat, they don't want to play, they don't want to socialize. They really, for us, in, the family counseling side, we have, the experience to see children act in and act out
Mm-hmm.
because of separation. And in
Yeah.
speaking to acting in and acting out, we have for acting in, children become withdrawn. And, in this culture, we say, we don't believe that, even though your father and mother is now living together, that means that, that would affect the child. That's the culture or the mindset that a lot of us, in the Guyanese society might have, but we really have to zoom in that children are affected, that some children decide to act in, that they would withdraw, they won't talk a lot. Some children decide, all my emotions, I don't want to share it with anybody, I'll just keep it to myself.
Yeah.
In that event, we find few or some children might actually suffer from depression. And these are such taboo topics, and this is something I really would like for some time you talk about when it comes to children and depression and anxiety. So we
Mm-hmm.
have also for the acting out part of it, some children we would say would misbehave. They'll be disorderly, they'll be disrespectful to authority in school, out of school, in the community. So a lot of things happen to children when there's a separation. And something that we really don't talk about, that I was researching and dealing with my previous cases, I've seen that the financial side of separation affects children as well. We might have our viewers saying, how come the financial side affects the children and they don't work? But in terms of separations, what happened? Financially, some children take it upon themselves to say, hey, you know what? My father left my mother and she's the only breadwinner now and things are going downhill and I might have to step up as a man. And it
Mm-hmm.
is very evident in our society that children actually feel it financially when there's a separation.
Mm-hmm. 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 Miss Holland, would you like to add anything to that? You're muted. Your mic is muted.
Oh, sorry about that. Yes, I do endorse what my colleague just said,
Yeah.
because indeed a child will feel a great sense of loss once there's a separation. Right? They will feel that something is missing in their life, right? And they may seek out that missing component in their life in different ways, all right? Now, as a parent, or separation by parent, all right, this can mean that the children not only lose their home, but their whole way of life. All right, this is what they're accustomed
Mhm.
to. This is they you see, as a child and toddlers, they develop what you call schemas. All right, and this is their way of reasoning the way world works and the way things works and the way things supposed to be, etc. So when this is changed, you find children are pushed to have reasoning more reasoning, and they call it accommodation, in which they have to adapt to a new way of life,
Yes.
etc. All right, so the colleague spoke of insecurities, which is a big one, because that fear and the lack of trust, all right, which this can filter into relationships as the child grow older, all right, and it can also break their self confidence, right, since they may start, some of them may start to blame themselves, or some of them will receive blame for that separation. In some cases, I know of mothers who would have blamed the child and said, it's because of you. All right. If I didn't have you or something. And in some cases, fathers will blame the child and these kind of things. Okay. So and that child may take that blame onto themselves. So these are um, ways that children can be affected, all right, through blames, etc. And they may engage in appropriate behavior as they grow older, drug use and excessive sexual behavior. They want to feel belong. So they're looking for affection. They're looking for what they were missing
Mm-hmm.
in their earlier life. Also, there's a trend that that can be attached to that child. If they realize that the parents were, let's say, parents were separated as the family is broken, or the child themselves were separated from parents, this can carry on into their own family life. All right. So these are some of the effects you have from separation.
Okay. Thank you so much for that, Mr. Holland. Yala, could you just mute the mic for me, please? Or just mute? Yeah. Okay, thank you. It's okay.
I was just enjoying the crowing of that cock.
I'm saying now this time of the day he's crowing that loud. Oh, sorry. So Miss Ward, yes, could you give us your bit on, how children are affected when they are separated from their parents? Your mic is muted.
My apologies. I'm saying that is a great question. Both panelists would have contributed significantly to it. One thing I would add, while I believe it's a twofold coin, while parents are moved away from the home, I'm going to quote from your definition, children are also moved away from their home and are separated from parents. And it can have two effects on the child and or their family. Children pattern their lifestyles from their parent and or guardian. And depending on the reason for the separation, just like your colleague said, they can either act in or act out. Sometimes the effects, though, are not all times bad. Children who are sometimes removed from the home are removed for reasons that are last resorts. Let's say the child would have been abused or maltreated in some way, and the removal is necessary. If these children aren't given the coaching or aren't given the voice to be involved in such an important process that is for their life, they can be affected negatively. So I believe that all children are affected differently, even if they come from the same household, because every child is their own individual, and everything will affect them differently.
Yeah.
So with that said, once the child he or she is involved within the process, it then determines how, or if not, it then determines how this child is affected. Some children generate or grow into positive adults because they're removed from the setting that was toxic from them and placed into one where they receive better parental care from someone who is non-generic. And piggybacking on your colleague's point there. And they become better adults, whereas children are left in the home and not separated. So sometimes separation is necessary, sometimes it's good, and sometimes it's bad, but it all depends on the child and how it is approached. And that is all I'm going to say. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you so much for that. And I'm so happy, Ms. Ward, that you would have mentioned that sometimes children are separated from a home because of abuse. And I feel like we live in a culture where abuse is still a taboo topic to some extent. And what you find is that families can house a perpetrator, because we know that perpetrators are 84% families and known adults. And, they believe that perpetrator over a child. And with that being said, or when they do that, then the CPA the CPA will have to remove that child for his or her safety. But like Ms. Ward would have stressed, and Milton Smith, who was from the CPA on a television program and on our Zoom live, he would say that it is the last resort, providing that the family is not taking the necessary measures to safeguard that child. Okay, so remember that every decision being made in the family must be in the best interest of the child. Okay, so thank you so much for that. Now, a number of reasons why children are separated would have come out. Yolette mentioned finance, money. Sometimes a parent have to, go away to work to provide for the family because the father has to go into the interior to work. And is the child affected by that separation, although the child is benefiting from it? Yes. Yes, he or she is affected by it. So we must take those things into consideration. Now I'm going to ask you guys a little personal question. It's not that personal, but it's for the purpose of getting the message over. And the question is, were you ever separated from your family for a significant period of time? And, how did it affect you? And we're all adults here, and I just want our viewers to listen to what my panel members have to say. Yes, Mr. Holland.
All right. I'll agree to expose my upbringing. All right. It was publicly said anyway. I was at the age of 2 years, 4 months, or something like that. I lost my mother. Um, and what would I say? Of course, she was my world as a child. And I lived with uh, foster mothers who, one came into the home around sometime after, maybe around the age of 3 or 4. And I think I would have spent like a year. My father's there, but he's mostly at work. He would work 7 to 7, 11 to 7 at the bauxite company. So we only saw our father when he came in to take a short rest, and then we will rush into his bedroom to bother him and lie down with him, or sometimes spend part of the night with him because we were the little ones. Then at the age of 6, around 5, 6, my father would have sent us to live in Berbice with a foster mom, myself, and how many other siblings? Let's see, Timon, Fiona, 4 other siblings. Yes, I had to count. It's a lot
Yes.
of us, 9 of us. So we experienced that separation then. And though we were placed into a different cultured family in Berbice, we had to spend some time getting accustomed to that country life. Um, it was tough upbringing. It was very tough, I would say, but it's something that I love and I cherish and I don't regret. I had to learn from 6, 7, 8 survival, basic survival modes. We had to learn to do several things. I mean, as kids, I would climb coconut trees. Yes, you wouldn't believe it. This young man, former mayor and all that. I would climb coconut tree for persons at the age of 6, 7, 8 for a plate of food. All right. Those are some of the things that I did back then. Sometimes we would go as kids and raid persons while we were looking at cows in the field or in the back dam. We would raid persons. Sometimes you get a farm and we would just to get banana to get a meal for the day. So that separation where you had to fight not only among your extended family now, you had other brothers and sisters, and two, you feel as if you're second class. All right, you're not the first priority in your mind and as a child living under such a roof. So you had to fight for your survival. So there's a separate fight for belonging. You want to feel you belong within this unit or you have a parent. So it was tough. So as kids, myself and my other siblings, everybody reach out to different persons who resonated well with us. So we became more attached to them. Like myself, I became attached to, I had my younger brother, stepbrother, Godwin. We were very close, and Tyrone, and Onika, my step. So we were kind of close. Then outside of that home, I was close to a relative of that family. Was very close to this old man. They call him Papa. We used to call him Old Man Papa. And he used to hide his food every day, and sometimes in a drawer. He would eat some of his food and he would hide some of in that plate and he would keep it for me. Sometimes to eat the food was tough because the food would taste like what you call Natlin balls or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It sometimes start to get that taste. But I would remember feeling like you want your older siblings. You want, we can't wait for your father to come and visit you. When my father would leave Linden and sometimes travel to Berbice just to spend the night with us and travel back. So it is tough. I was separated. Yeah. And it's not a nice thing as a child growing up. You had to search for sense. You had to search for self. You had to establish who you are, who you will be. I remember at school, children telling me things like um, who they want to know who I'll be when they get big. They would laugh at you, they would mock you, etc. All right. So it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy.
I hope they see who you are now, Mr. Holland.
Oh yeah.
An inspiration to many. Okay. Yeah, so Miss Ward, would you like to share?
Sure. Shupita, as you read the question out, it then was emphasized in my mind that theory is different from practical, I
Mm-hmm.
found it difficult attempting to disclose, I thought I was not affected in any way.
Mm-hmm.
But it endorses the fact that childhood suppressed memories are oftentimes resurfaced when triggered. Um,
Mm-hmm.
my mommy would have pursued her career in my formative years. So
Mm-hmm.
that means she would have had to leave the home in order to do so. Because, like Mr. Holland, I'm a Lindener, and so is my mother, and there weren't much opportunities for her at that time in Linden. I I was a child who would just suppress, suppress, suppress. And I thought it never affected me until I started to grow and I would look for certain things, not on the relationship aspect, but for identity. When I started going through identity crisis, you needed that figure there to pattern off of. But luckily for me, um, the contact was still there, but I struggled with the present, the absence of her not being physically there. Um, the contact alone via the phone did not suffice. So for me, it was a bit of a struggle. And I believe today that I still have a difficulty getting over the separation. I understand that it was necessary. However, psychologically, it affected me with my growth and development. Many things when I wanted mommy at the said time, because she had to be away, she could not have attended to the need at the time. And children being children, you don't have it now, you puff up, you get angry, and you never saw the true meaning in this one. But now that I'm older, I think I'm older and much wiser, I understand the need for her to be absent. But the feeling that was created at that time is still present in some instances. And that reminds me of how separation can create jeopardy for children. And well, I was lucky to not have the back and forth because my parents also separated around that time when mommy would travel. So that could have created a double jeopardy for me. But besides the emotional imbalance, I have a problem expressing emotions. I talk a lot, but I don't talk about my feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And reflecting, I would believe that that is because at the time when I needed mommy to talk about my feelings, she wasn't there. So when she was ready, I wasn't ready. So I never really dived in directly with talking with feelings. So it affected me within the emotional aspect and the psychological aspect. And still, as an adult, I have issues talking about my feelings with my partner. So it is difficult when I reflect and see how something that happened at such a tender age is still present today. And I am still working on
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing, Mr. Holland and Miss Ward. Thank you so much for sharing with us. I know that this is very personal for the most of us, and it's or my panelists putting themselves out there just so the viewers can get an understanding or a feel of with regards to how children and inevitably adults, because remember the child is the father to the man. That's what Mr. Hopkins said. So I'm gonna give you your chance. Now you're allowed to speak.
Um, Something that I really want for us to, share with the viewers that separation is a form of trauma. So we really want to think that separation, because it might be sudden in some cases when it happens to children, we really have to think that we have to give them time to adjust to the actual separation, because the emotional side, the physical side is being disrupted because of that split. Right? When I think about the question, I thought about, do I really have any, separation cases that I can talk about for me personally? And it dawned on me that I actually do. And this is something that I want to share with the viewers as well. Separation can be through the form of death. So not necessarily meaning that, the father, my dad left my mom and that's it. That is a form of separation as well. Your father might die suddenly, your mother might die suddenly, and there's where we have a split within the family's dynamics. And for me, it would have been the death of my father. I thought about it, as I'm going through the question today, Shakrit, and I'm like, I had separation with my dad since I was small, probably 5, 4, my mom and my dad separated. They were married and they separated because of their own reasons. But he was still present in my life. So they co-parent well, fairly well for me. But when my dad died, I saw that as the actual separation within my family, because he's no longer there, to talk to me, to give me advice. And as the colleague, as Hans is saying, a lot of times for us as females, when our father leaves, whether it's through death or whether through separation or whether the mom leaves, a lot of times we suppress that feeling and we just get by. Especially if it's in a household where it's just females and we are the more dominant one and we're the more, vocal one in the household when we have our mothers. But when fathers leave, we really, society as a whole really don't pay much emphasis. We see it as a norm, and when I look at it, it was kind of normal for me to not have my father in the household. Because, your father and mother don't get along. That's the way it has to be. They separate, and society says that's fine. But when my father died, then I saw the actual importance of having that male figure in my life. Even now, as I reflect, I think, my father left with me, because he died at 16. He left with me so many memories that actually is long lasting for me, because despite he left physical stuff, material stuff, he left values, because he would always say, family is important. Look out for your sibling. Look out for, your mother. Be there. Show love in the home. And that is now actually living with me. Every time I think about my father and his death, the only thing that really could come to mind, even though it's kind of sad, I remember that he's not here physically, but he left something with me, and it still affects me because I don't have a father to say, when I get married, he'll walk me down the aisle. I have a stepfather who's been playing that role, but still, my biological father is not there, and I still feel it. My brother did something for me the other day. He posted my father's picture, and like whenever my brother whenever he achieves something in his life, he would normally post our father's picture on Facebook and say, if you were here, I wanted you to see all the things that I am accomplishing. And that's something that stood out to me every single time. I mean, I always think about it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, death is a very, it's a sad and it's a dark thing, but it's the reality that a lot of children have to face, and I found that within our culture, people tend to say, you know what, he or she is small. They're going to remember what
Mhm.
happened. They're going to remember how they feel. And that child actually grow with that loss, that lack, that inability to express themselves because they were never given the platform to in the beginning of things. And, it is important that parents understand, that caregivers, that even family members understand that in everything children will be affected. That is why it is important that we make the best decision. We always consider how children will be affected or impacted. Another form of separation is divorce. Parents separate, they don't have the conversation with their children, and they say, you know what, all the children see us today or tomorrow. Daddy gets a new girlfriend, mommy gets a new boyfriend.
Mhm.
They don't know what happened, but daddy is no longer living in the house, or mommy decided to pack us up with the boodles and move out. So we're now left alone. And like, what do you do then? How do I, and like Mr. Holland would have rightfully said, how do you adapt or adjust to, such a change? It can be very challenging for children to understand. Remember that children, from the time they're conceived, they know what they're feeling things. So it is important that we have conversations with them, right? Love them as much as we can. Okay, so I'm a bit pressed for time, so I'm going to ask my other question. That many children grow up in a home where both parents migrate. Fathers go to the interior. Personally, my father used to work in the interior. And I can remember sharing my experience of waiting up for him at 2 o'clock, just reading the newspaper all day because I know he's coming. And then I wait up for him at 2 o'clock so that when he gets home, I have something to talk about with him. So parents often migrate. Mothers go to Bayer, fathers go to work just to provide for the family. But basically, what I want us to talk about is specifically how are children affected by the absence of a mother.
Mhm. Yeah.
Violet,
Yeah,
who's that?
sure, Shapita. So we all know that the mother is more the nurturer, or the caregiver in the household. So when a mother is absent, we find from time to time children develop a negative feeling, and that comes back to the first thing that I was saying. That sense of worth and that sense of belonging is being moved because the mother is the person that imparts or show a lot of love and affection. That side of the child is neglected. You find a lot of times children, whenever the mother is not in the home, they might react in ways that they might not want to love, they might not want to smile, they might not want to socialize. And these are all aspects that mothers provide for children. Also, when the mother is not in the home, we have poor behaviors for children coming out of children. We have some of our children, as I said, some of them would act in, some of them would act out when that mother figure is not there. There's also a case where children become withdrawn. Every area, the mother, mostly mothers, and this is, to send a message to our viewers, mothers provide more so, or they cater for the emotional aspect of a child. They cater a lot of time for the physical side, but in having a child develop into that perfect being or a decent adult, the mother is the person that sets the foundation through caregiving, through love and affection, through
Mm-hmm.
support. Mothers, when they are not present, we find children cannot communicate.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of children that cannot, not refuse, but in some cases cannot actually communicate in a positive way or in a soothing way or in a calm way. So I definitely would want to say, we don't want to push aside fathers, and we don't want to say that some fathers do not provide this. But from nature, we know mothers are more so those soft, caring kind of being, and those are the values that are instilled into children from their mothers. And if we don't have that kind of values instilled into children, here is where we find we will have children that sometimes become practice delinquent behaviors. Children academically have issues, they're not inclined to learn, they don't want to develop or grow. We have children that don't understand the importance of love and how to show love because it was never given to them from the mother figure.
Miss Ward, you can share your bit here.
Shakrita, thank you very much. When we talk about separation also, one thing I wanted to add, that sometimes a parent can be in a home and be uninvolved, and that is also a form of separation, and it is a very traumatizing form of separation. With that being said, let us reflect on the traditional gender roles. Women were garnered in the past, in the Genesis, to be the caretakers of the home. Women are also emotional beings. With that being said, women are mothers, are those persons who calm the rough waves within a home. And Mr. Wallace once said that the hand that rocks the cradle is the hand that rules the world. With that being said, if the mother is absent, whether she's there physically and not there, or have been totally separated from the home, children can develop different types of anxieties. And that is something that is not recognized within our Guyanese culture. Oh, you got problems. Oh, you acting out. But it's actually a real condition that can affect children if the mothers are absent. Because mothers are meant to be the emotional soothing beings, if children do not benefit from that during their years of development, they can become fixated one. And once the fixation is not resolved, they can struggle with anxiety for many years, even into adulthood. So that is one of the major things for me that occurs when a mother is absent from the home. A father sometimes mold the child along certain areas, but anxiety is something that a child forever struggles with if the mother is absent from the home.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so now I'm eager to hear what the only male and the father on our panel has to say with regards to mother being absent from the home.
Yes, I really love what my colleagues said, both Miss Ward and Madonna had to say. So I have nothing much to add to that. Besides, regardless of the reason, um, separation of a child from one or both parents, it creates serious challenges for children, and these challenges vary, all right, in age, the age of the child. But I want to bring it home a little bit from the perspective of a boy and a girl growing up in a home without a mother. I want to let me um, shift it there a little bit. As a girl, I know missing a mother in the home, that young girls will grow up missing a great part of their own development. In some cases, some of them don't have a model to pattern themselves after, and in a lot of cases, young ladies become um, um, what would I say,
Yeah.
young women before the time, and not understanding how to do it, how to care. In some cases, the widest perspective, they don't know how to care for themselves or how to provide um, care in a home because that part of their upbringing was lost somewhere or the other. Young men, on the other hand, missing a mother and also missing the interaction between your father and the mother in the home will then rob you as a young man growing up on how you yourself should care for your own family. So these are things that affect persons without persons actually realizing, this effect is there. All right. So I hope I answered that question. Now, I want to touch back on something that Miss Ward said earlier, and I found myself in some of the fears that she said. Um, that she's confronted sometimes by the memories of her past with the separation and etc. Now, these are things the great Mr. Dr. Rovin Diodat, when I was just pushing a fledgling journalist, I had a problem because, they say when you come from Linden, you always drop your H. It's a thing. And I went to Brevis and I remember Marissa Boudou and, a girl I used to like, a pretty beautiful Indian girl. And she used to laugh at me. She used to say, come, say head. And I would say Ed. And she would laugh at me. I grew up struggling to pronounce my H. Then I started to read the news, and they would tell me, you got to pronounce your H's and so on. Then they said, you need to talk to Dr. Rovin Diodat. And when I spoke to Dr. Rovin Diodat, he said, what is your problem? I said, I have a problem pronouncing my H's. So he said, so what are you doing about it? I said, well, I'm trying to instead of saying Carwin Holland, I'm trying to say Carwin Holland. And I'm, working on it. And he said, good, I don't have anything to deal with you. So I said, why? You haven't done anything. He said, yes, you've acknowledged the problem and you started to work on it. Right? So he left me right there with that diagnosis. Now, in your case, separation, like other effects, leaves that little spot in your brain, in your memory. All right. And these effects, it's there. So getting over it, like forgiveness and unforgiveness. When you don't forgive somebody, that is a spot remaining there. You got to start forgiving them to get rid of that from your mind. From, this thing is there. So confront it positively. Like me, I'm willing and I relish every opportunity to talk about the shortcomings I had as a child. Like I'm not afraid to tell people I was like malnourished. I was like rough. I had a tough upbringing at one point in my life. I'm proud to tell people because I'm proud of who I am today. All right, that I don't shy from that. So I think opening up a little bit more and confronting it positively and replacing those memories with a positive thought, you have to search it out. See what is the negative thought that you don't like to bring up or confront and replace it with a positive thought, something to counter it, and make it intentional that you either speak about it or you practice saying that thing that will confront it. And years will go. It wouldn't disappear all fully, but guess what? It will be like non-existent after some time. So that's where you confront fears and some of these negative effects that come on down at you. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Holland. And I also want to say is that while Mr. Holland would have given some very, good tips and good advice to Miss Ward with regards to addressing the things that her past and what's not, these are still things that we want to try our utmost best to avoid children having to encounter, because not everyone is capable of getting to that place. Or let's say Miss Ward might just have issues, and not to put you on the spot, Miss Ward, my apologies, addressing her past, but I'm just trying to make an example. But there are children who go to substance abuse, persons who really can't deal with what they would have, children who really can't handle or don't know how to cope with the separation or what they have encountered. And something I always remember, I can remember when my grandmother died. My mother said, my mother is a big woman. Oh my God, if she hear me say that. but she's a mature woman and beautifully matured woman. And, she looked at me and she said to me at her age, she said, how am I going to live without my mother? Her and my grandmother shared a very close relationship. And she said, Peter, how am I going to live without my mother? And I did not have an answer for that question. And she is, I don't really want to say her age because she's going to look at the program and then she's going to get to me. But, she's a mature woman. She's an adult. And she felt that loss, not because she's of an age where she understands things, because we're all human beings, children are human beings and they understand too, but because it's her mother. And there is no love, like they say, like a mother's love. Okay, so it is important that children grow up with that motherly love. And in the instance that a mother is deceased or die, the caregiver, whoever take up the role or the responsibility, must try their utmost best to provide or see how best they can substitute that love for that child that is in his or her care. Again, we're a bit pressed for time. We have 4 minutes. We have 4 minutes remaining, but I really want to ask you guys, what are some reasons children are placed into institutional care, just so it brings some clarity for the viewers. Some reasons children are placed into institutional care. I can start with you, Ms. Ward.
All right. I'm in no capacity here because I didn't have the position to represent where I work. However, what I can say, like you said earlier, children are placed into institutional care as last resort. They are placed in institutional care when the relative agencies, one such CPA, has worked with the family, tried everything that they could, and the family would not have been taken to a place where they're better able to cope and or provide the care for the child that he or she needs for positive development and growth throughout their lifetime. Children are placed into institutional care where they have been abused, where there's a trend of abuse, where they've been either neglected, sexually abused, physically abused, emotionally, verbally, or a combination of the few. Children are placed into institutional care if external family or extended family members are not readily available and willing to cater to the needs of those children. Children are placed into institutional care for many reasons, Ms. Thomas. Sometimes it is just the best option for the child or the children, regardless if there is extended family members there for the child. So I would emphasize again, it is a last resort after working with the families and trying the utmost best to take the family to a place where they're better able to handle their situation and or overcome. And once that is futile, I do believe it is then and only then children are placed into institutional care.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Mr. Holland, I'll take you last, Gillette.
Sure.
Okay. Yes, I want to just go to the research I got this week. I mean, the research I read this week done by your organization, ChildLinK, where they mention a couple of things, and it's quite interesting. The causes of placement in residential care, child abuse, as mentioned before, child misbehavior or indiscipline, family violence, poverty, right? Disability of parents, death of parents, school absenteeism, disaster, right? Natural or otherwise, all right? But these were actual findings of that research done by your organization. Now, in some cases, I want to add to that list where some persons are just neglect, all right? Looking at uh, neglect, which I think should be placed there, where some neglect it's intentional. Some persons just want to send off their children, and it's happening. It's like what's happening with the elderly persons. Some persons neglect them, drop them off at a hospital or someplace, and they're not caring for them. People are actually doing the same with children. Parents, and in some cases, you're hampering my life. You're cramping my style. All right, so I will send you off to some aunt or some relative who now become burdened by this extra responsibility. Then they're left with no other choice but, hey, I can't put out my own, but you have to send you off. So those are some of the other things that could be added to that list.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Mr. Holland. Yolette?
Actually, the panel would have listed all the reasons why children are placed into institutional care in Guyana. So I don't think I have any additional thing to add to that.
Okay.
Quickly, I just want to add, even though children are placed into institutional care, I do believe it is not the hope to give up on the family then. I
Yeah.
believe the strategy is also to work with the families until they are at that place where the child can be reintegrated and they can become to start healing again. So
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
coming, Shakrita, to add to Miss Ward's view, the last point coming from the reasons why children are placed into institutional care, we really want to give a plot to Child Protection Agency in Guyana as well as ChildLinK, of course, because we are actually promoting reintegration of children. So we're actually encouraging or through psychosocial support and counseling that children can be moved from institutional care and reunited with family or in a family-based home.
Yes.
and I
Thank you
think
so
Protection
much.
is doing a great job with that, if I might say.
Yes, yes. So thank you so much all for joining me. I know that you guys would have all shared your views and your expertise and your opinions. And I just want persons viewing this to understand that willingness of the family to create a change is what will make the difference in the work that persons working in the child care and protection and child protection field, happen. Because we can have a vision, we can see a change and have, work towards it, but unless the family is ready to open, unless they're ready to make the change for children, only then can it happen. Remember, we make our decisions based on the welfare of the child, according to their rights outlined in the United Nations Convention of the Right on the Rights of the Child. That is sorry. So once more, I want to say thank you to my panel members for joining me this afternoon. This was a very fruitful program. Tune in next Thursday. Our day have been changed from Fridays to Thursday at 2 o'clock. So remember to join us and let's have a conversation. Thank you so much once more. Enjoy
Thank
the
you for
rest of
having
the
us. You too.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Bye.
having
Nice meeting you all.